The resort stood on the edge of the city, like a palace carved out of light. Every window glowed, every corridor shimmered, and crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they felt unreal, as if the sky itself had bent down to watch the celebration. This was not just a wedding. This was the wedding. Politicians arrived with security details. Business tycoons walked in with calm confidence. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered names. Waiters moved like shadows, carrying gold-rimmed plates filled with dishes most people only saw in magazines. At the center of the grand hall stood a massive royal stage. Velvet curtains framed golden arches. A custom-made microphone, black and gold, polished to perfection, stood at the center, waiting. Everything was ready. Except the voice. The famous singer, booked months in advance for an enormous fee, had disappeared. Calls went unanswered, managers vanished. Finally, a cold message arrived minutes before the performance. "Sorry, couldn't make it." Whispers spread like fire. A wedding of this scale without music was unthinkable. The bride's father stood frozen near the stage. A man who controlled billion-dollar deals now felt powerless. "This wedding cannot fail," he said through clenched teeth. "Not tonight, not in front of these people." Far from the spotlight, near the service entrance and buffet line, stood a boy no one noticed. His shirt was torn at the elbows, his trousers were faded and patched, his sandals were cracked, one strap tied together with string. He was about 15. His name was Ishan. He wasn't invited, he wasn't staff, he was invisible. He had come because hunger doesn't wait for permission. As he ate quietly, his eyes kept drifting back to the stage, not to the lights, not to the crowd, but to the microphone. Because long before this night, that microphone had already been waiting for him. Ishan had learned early how to stay invisible. Invisible children survive longer. Invisible children are ignored, but they also go unharmed. He ate slowly, listening to the tension around him. Every sentence carried panic. "The singer isn't coming. This is a disaster. They paid millions. This wedding will be remembered for the wrong reason." Something tightened inside Ishan, not fear, but recognition. He had seen empty stages before, small broken ones, temple courtyards, street corners, railway platforms, places where sound waited but never arrived. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. "When you sing, Beta, even hunger goes quiet." Ishan put his plate down, wiped his hands on his trousers. His heart pounded. He knew how he looked. He knew he didn't belong here. But he also knew one thing with absolute certainty. He could sing. Before doubt could stop him, his feet moved, past tables of laughing guests, past guards distracted by chaos, past eyes that looked through him. He stopped in front of the billionaire. The man was shouting at the event manager when a small, steady voice cut through the noise. "Sir, if you want, I can sing." Silence fell. Then laughter, sharp and dismissive. The billionaire turned and stared at the boy's torn clothes and bare feet. "This isn't a street show. This is my daughter's wedding." Ishan lifted his head. "If I sing," he said quietly, "and people listen, what will you say then?" Something in his voice made the billionaire pause. "If you save my honor tonight," the man said slowly, "I'll give you $100 million. Gasps rippled through the hall. "I don't want money. I just want one chance." After a long pause, the billionaire pointed toward the stage. "Go," he said. "Let's see if a voice is bigger than status." The stage felt enormous, too clean, too bright. The microphone stood taller than Ishan. Lights burned into his eyes. Music began. For a moment, fear gripped his throat. His hands trembled. Then he closed his eyes. He saw his mother, the leaking roof, the railway platform, coins thrown without kindness, nights when hunger sang louder than hope. He breathed in and sang. Not loudly, not dramatically, honestly. The first line drifted through the hall like a confession. The second wrapped around listening ears. Whispers stopped, phones froze mid-air, even breathing slowed. This was not performance. This was truth. As the song grew, Ishan grew with it. Fear faded, pain transformed. When the hardest part arrived, the place singers usually showed power. Ishan showed restraint. That was when tears fell, from people who had forgotten how to cry. The final note hung in the air, refusing to leave. Silence. Then a single clap. Then another. Then the entire hall stood. The billionaire walked toward the stage, no longer angry, only humbled. "You saved my honor," the billionaire said into the microphone. "But you taught me something far more valuable." He faced the guests. "I believed money could buy greatness. Tonight, a hungry boy proved me wrong." Turning to Ishan, he continued, "I promised you 100 million, but not as a deal." The hall leaned forward. "That money will build a trust for your education, your music, and for children whose voices were never invited." People stepped forward. A producer, a school director, a studio owner. Opportunities replaced emptiness. Ishan sang again, this time for his mother. The hall didn't applaud immediately. Respect filled the silence first. Then, thunderous applause. 1 year later. The city sounded different. On a quiet morning, radios across small cafes, buses, and corner shops carried a new voice. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it stopped people in their tracks. A boy delivering newspapers paused on the sidewalk. A taxi driver turned the volume up. A woman washing dishes stood still, hands wet, eyes distant. The host said softly, "This is a new artist, no stage name, just a voice." And the song began. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Those who listened felt something familiar, like a memory they couldn't fully explain. Across town, in a modest rehearsal room, Ishan sat on a wooden chair, headphones resting loosely around his neck. The walls were plain, no chandeliers, no red carpet, just soundproof foam and a small microphone. He closed his eyes as the song ended. Not because he was proud, but because he remembered. He remembered the hunger, the fear, the night he almost walked away. A knock came at the door. It was the same music producer who once told him, "Crowds don't make singers, truth does." "You're trending," the man said calmly, "but that's not why I'm here." He handed Ishan a tablet. On the screen were hundreds of messages, not from critics, not from celebrities, from kids. A 14-year-old from a shelter. "I sing when everyone is asleep. Your story gave me courage." A girl from a small town. "My parents say music won't feed me, but your voice fed my hope." A boy from a factory area. "I never thought someone like me could be heard." Ishan read every message, slowly, carefully. Then he stood up. That evening, he returned to the same grand hall, the same royal stage, the same golden lights, the same velvet curtains. But this time, there were no billionaires in the front row. Instead, the seats were filled with students, street performers, kids from shelters, young dreamers holding notebooks instead of phones. The microphone stood at the center, polished, golden, intimidating. Ishan walked toward it. He wasn't wearing expensive clothes, just a simple shirt, clean shoes, no spotlight chasing him. Before singing, he looked toward the back of the hall, where a group of service staff stood, quietly, just like he once did. He spoke. "If you think your voice doesn't matter," he said gently, "it's only because no one has listened yet." Silence fell. Not the awkward kind, the listening kind. I stood on this stage once, feeling smaller than the microphone in front of me. I thought the world had already decided who I was. He paused. But the truth is, your beginning does not get to decide your ending. Somewhere in the audience, a child wiped their eyes. "I didn't rise because I was chosen," Ishan said. "I rose because I didn't stop." He stepped back. The music began. But this time, he didn't sing alone. One by one, voices joined him. A girl from the left aisle, a boy from the back row, a soft harmony from the side stage. Different voices, different tones, different stories, but one song. The hall didn't erupt in applause when it ended. It stood in silence, respectful, full, complete. Later that night, Ishan sat alone on the edge of the stage. The lights were dim, the hall was empty. The microphone stood there quiet now. He touched it gently, not as a symbol of success, but as a reminder that voices don't rise to prove something, they rise to call others up. And somewhere, in a small room, a child sang quietly, believing for the first time the world might listen. Sometimes the world stays quiet, not because your voice is weak, but because it hasn't learned how to listen yet. And when one voice finally rises, it doesn't just change one life, it creates room for many others to rise. If this story moved you, like this video so more people can hear it. Subscribe for real stories that remind us where hope truly comes from. And comment below, where are you watching from? Your comment might inspire the next story.